Thank you so much, Stephen. Hi, I'm Lulu, and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm sober today by the grace of God, by the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, as outlined in the first 164 pages of our book, and good sponsorship. And thank you for that lovely introduction. Thank you, Andy, for asking me. It's funny because the Pacific Group has been my home group for many years. And as I was saying before the meeting, I recently moved to St. Louis in Missouri. And so when I called my sponsor a few nights ago and asked her to give me a cake at the Pacific Group when I'm in Los Angeles next week, my birthday is next Thursday, is this Thursday. She said, well, it's no longer your home group, so you will need to ask permission. I was like, what do you mean it's no longer my home group? Like I panicked. I had a massive heart attack. What do you mean? And she said, do you mean you haven't gotten a new home group? I've been here for 4 weeks. I was like, well, test driving a car. So as of yesterday, my new home group is a group called Into Action here in St. Louis, Missouri. It was started by some members of my other home group, the Pacific Group, and I'm just super grateful to have one. And so the good news is when Andy asked me to do this, it would have been 7:30 a.m. my time in Los Angeles. However, in the Midwest, it's 9:30. It's wonderful. But yeah, I'll give you the statistics so you can start judging me now. I have a sobriety date is December 12th of 2000. I have a home group. It is Into Action in St. Louis, Missouri, and I have a sponsor. Her name is Marilyn S. Three things I was told to get and keep when I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I want to welcome you if you're new. I suggest you get and keep those three things. And I don't know, man, I'm sitting here in a weird spot. This is not, I haven't done a Zoom meeting from here. I'm in a weird room in a very cold place. And my life is very different than it was just a few weeks ago. But what I can tell you is it's a great life. And if you're new to Alcoholics Anonymous, if you would have told me St. Louis, Missouri was on the bingo card, I would have told you, I'm not so sure this sober thing's going to work out for me. I lived in Los Angeles, California from the age of 9. And it's just a big change and it's different and it's wonderful. And God's in all of it. I can tell you that I'm actually originally from Chicago, and I used to talk like I was from Chicago. And then I moved to California and they made fun of me. So I stopped talking like I'm from Chicago, right? Because I just want to fit in. I just want to fit in. And we moved to Bel Air, California, which sounds really bougie, but it's not because we were like the Bel Air hillbillies, right? And I hear people in Alcoholics Anonymous say all the time that they didn't feel like they fit in growing up, and I didn't. In California, it was 1976, which dates me terribly, and they were super cool, right? It was surfers and skaters. Oh man. They were wearing OP shorts and hang 10 socks, and Senor Lopez ponchos and Vans. And, I was this nerdy kid from the Midwest. I was wearing plaid polyester pants, that came up to my neck. And, man, I'm not cool, right? And I'm smart, but I don't want to fit in with the smart kids. And I wasn't pretty, so I didn't fit in with the popular girls, and I wasn't athletic, so I didn't fit in with the jocks. But I found that the stoners took me without an application, right? And we sat down, right? We smoked a little weed, and it was cool, right? It was like it didn't matter, right, that I didn't have cool clothes anymore, and more importantly, that it didn't matter to you, it didn't matter to me. And I believe that is because alcohol and other mind-altering substances fix something in me that I don't believe they fix in the normal person. I believe this because I spend a lot of time around people who aren't alcoholics. I don't know about you guys, they fascinate me. Like I love talking to ladies in the lunchroom, right? The way they drink. Have a glass of wine, and I'm fascinated. And the person in this realm who fascinates me the most is my brother. My brother's not an alcoholic. He's the weirdest guy I know. And we're talking about like same egg, same sperm, same womb, same upbringing, right? This guy, we are the same. And this dude is not an alcoholic. How do I know this? So many reasons. My brother is a school teacher in Arizona. He's been married to his wife for 25 years. I've been married 4 times. I can't get to 25 years. Like this guy is the most normal, beige, responsible. He's such a good dude, right? He wears that what I call the beige guy uniform, which is a mint green polo shirt tucked into his, khaki pants with a leather belt and Crocs. Like this dude is related to me, right? I mean, I don't know, you can't see the tattoos, but this dude's related. And he has a wine cellar in his house. Let me just be clear about that. He has a wine cellar in his house, which means he keeps wine for like 10 years. I can't keep mouthwash in my house, right? And again, this dude is related to me. It's the weirdest thing, right? And he is not an alcoholic. I know this. We have these great conversations. I love my brother. Uh, he's in Arizona, and I was in Arizona not too long ago, and we went to the Olive Garden, which is the favorite restaurant of beige guys everywhere, right? And we're at Olive Garden, and he's not drinking, him and his wife, and I'm obsessed with their drinking. So I say to my brother, I'm like, hey, dude, how come you're not drinking? And my brother looked at me and he said, oh, me and the wife are on Weight Watchers, and it's too many points. Excuse me? Like I'm figuring out how many points are in the alcohol. I am skipping the food, and then we're just off the train with the Weight Watchers. Like, how does he think like this? And so I asked my brother, what happens to you when you drink? Because it fascinates me, right? And my brother says this. And he says, well, you know, I have a glass of wine and I start to feel it. And I think, well, good, good, keep going. Yeah, yeah. What you got? What you got? He goes, and then I have a second glass of wine and I start to feel out of control. So I stop. Again, the weirdest thing I've ever heard. See, I have my second drink and I'm starting to feel in control, right? I have my second drink and I've come to the party knowing I can't drink and drive anymore. And I've given away my keys and now I'm taking back my keys after my second drink because I'm sure I can drive maybe my car, maybe an 18-wheeler, depends on what you got, right? And so my brother and I have a different effect produced by alcohol. And I chase that into the gates of insanity and death. And what I can tell you is, by the time I'm 21 years old, right? I have the outside manifestations of a drug addiction because in those days, uh, it was a lot easier to get when you're younger. And then, so I'm 21 years old and I'm snorting a lot of cocaine and my nose has been cauterized a bunch of times. My gums are worn away and I'm rewiring the vacuum cleaner at 3 in the morning. So it's obvious I have a drug problem, right? And, uh, and so life becomes too much to bear. I take 64 sleeping pills, 10 contact. I wash it down with a bottle of Kahlua and I put on a long white gown to die because I'm a drama queen, right? And you're going to feel terrible when you find my dead body. Oh my God, it's going to be awful for you. And luckily or unluckily, I'm a drunk dialer and I called my mother. My mother is a therapist. Nothing worse than being put on a 72-hour hold in a lockdown psych ward put there by your nice Jewish mother. And it's just really embarrassing in front of the other psych ward patients. And in that psych ward, they sent me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And what I remember is a bunch of toothless old guys, probably about the age I am now, right? And these guys in this meeting, they talked about how they had lost their family due to drinking, and they had lost their job due to drinking, and they had lost their home due to drinking. And I'm 21 years old. I haven't lost anything yet. I'm not an alcoholic. Drugs are my problem. I'm not going to do drugs anymore. And I got out of that psych ward with what the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous talks about, self-knowledge. Drugs are my problem. I'm not going to do drugs. And there's going to be no problem. In that psych ward, they gave me medication. I do love medication. I love medication that says don't drink with this medication, right? Because it's going to be good if it's got a warning label. And I'm always, trying to fix my insides by fixing my outsides, right? So I meet a man who doesn't do drugs, and that's good, right? Because I'm not doing drugs anymore. We threw away my bong together, the romance, right? And And we moved to Simi Valley, California, because drug addicts don't live in Simi Valley, California. And we buy a house on a cul-de-sac because drug addicts don't live in a house on a cul-de-sac. And I start driving a station wagon because drug addicts don't drive a station wagon. And I start listening to country music because drug addicts don't listen to country music. It's that metal and hip hop that's messing me up. And nothing changes. And so I'm drinking and I'm taking pills, and this man and I get married, and we have my beautiful son, and I'm not a good mom. I put food in his stomach and I put clothes on his back, right? And I stick him in front of a television set, and I think that's good parenting, but I'm emotionally not there because I'm loaded every day. And one day that man leaves, and that's fine because I don't need him anyways. And I met a nice Al-Anon man who took care of me and my son for a year and a half so we didn't die. And I'm super grateful for that man. But then one night I went to a bar with my girlfriends and I met him. 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 The man of my dreams. Oh, he drinks like me. He has a crystal meth problem, so he's sicker than me. It's okay, I'll fix him. I know I was in love. He was wearing his work uniform. It had a patch with his name on it, so I could remember his name throughout my whole blackout. So that guy and I, we went back to that Al-Anon guy's house, and we picked up my kid and we picked up my stuff, and it was on. So we got married. I got married in our apartment because he was on house arrest. Nothing goes better with a rented tuxedo than an ankle bracelet. And uh, and by this time, my parents have disowned me in an email, right? Because they're techno savvy. And they said, we're not going to want you die. And we're not going to want you to take our grandson with you. And my response to that is, I don't need you anyways. And I've lost my third job that year. And I've been hospitalized 4 times for drinking. And if you would have asked me if I was an alcoholic, I would have told you no. I would have told you that the problem was the job, that the problem was my parents. Problem was baby daddy. Problem was definitely you. And if you're new, I don't care why you're here. I didn't come to Alcoholics Anonymous to get sober. I didn't. I came here because I was backed into a corner one more time, and I came here to get everybody off my ass. And that's my truth, right? You'll hear things here like you have to be here for you or blah, blah, blah. I've heard people say that. I don't believe that. I believe the magic of Alcoholics Anonymous has worked on me despite me. Because I came to you kicking and screaming. I had no intention of staying here. I was backed into a corner one more time. They're taking my kid away. There's a sticker on the door. The chain's coming next, right? On my apartment. My man is residing in the Twin Towers Correctional Facility. I'll go to a treatment center. I'm the girl who took all her drugs to treatment. I really didn't understand the whole thing. I knew you weren't going to let me drink anymore. I mean, it does say Alcoholics Anonymous. It's in the kind of title. And the guy who unpacked my bags at the rehab pulled out my Ziploc bag with 15 prescriptions in it. And he said, "What's this?" And I said, "Oh, those are my medications. They're prescribed by a doctor." And he said, "You have a lot of doctors." And I said, "I have a lot of ailments." And he said, "Some of them are in Puerto Rico." It's a little different back then. And he was great. He said, "Here's what I'm going to do." He said, "When you need them, you can come up front and get them." And I said, "That's great, right?" And that night they brought in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and you guys scared me to death. I have no social lubricant. I have no idea how to deal with you. You're smiling. You're happy. You're clean. You want to hug me. And I went running up to that front office, knocked on the door. Nice guy who unpacked my bags, nowhere to be found. Woman opens the door. What? I said, "I need 2 Ativan, 2 Xanax, a Valium, a Vicodin, a Trazodone, a Wellbutrin, a Prozac, please. I'm having an anxiety attack." And she said, "You can't have that here." And I said, "No, you don't understand, right? Because that's the cry of the alcoholic is that you don't understand." And she said, "Oh, yes, I do. The worst thing that's going to happen is you're going to hyperventilate. You're going to pass out on the floor. You're going to wake up and you're going to be absolutely fine." And she was absolutely right. I spent my first week in Alcoholics Anonymous watching meetings from behind a sliding glass like nurse's window in the center because when I'm hyperventilating and passing out in your meetings, it's just super disruptive. I spent my second week in Alcoholics Anonymous uh, sitting in a chair by the door with my foot touching the outside wall so I wouldn't hyperventilate and pass out in your meetings. And that's what I brought you. Then I was going to do some of what you did when I got here. I wasn't going to do all of what you did when I got here. I liked meetings. I didn't have much of a social life when I got here. Meetings had my three favorite C's: cookies, coffee, convicts. I like meetings. Use it as a dating service. Odds are good, goods are odd, right? And they told me to take commitments. I'd take commitments where I'd look cute and be the center of attention. I'd jump up. I was your chip chick, your literature chick. But I sure wasn't setting up your chairs or cleaning up your cigarette butts, you know. They told me to get a sponsor. I got a sponsor in name only because every time I talked to that woman, she'd tell me what to do. I'm not really big on authority figures. They told me not to get in a relationship my first year. I did, and I got my first sober relationship at a year and a day. Followed the rules, right? I worked step none. I got no God, no sponsor, but I'm going to meetings. He's been out of jail for 8 days, and we're in love. We're going to be sober together forever, right? We're just going to go to meetings, right? You see those old sober couples in the corner. That's how they got there, right? Just going to meetings. And in 9 months, he was loaded in my house. All the money was gone, and he was walking out my front door. And for me, this causes a problem because I have alcoholism. And what I have at this point is a year and 9 months of completely untreated alcoholism. My alcoholism demands treatment. It demands treatment with a spiritual solution, as outlined in our book, or Alcohol and Drugs. So it's 8 days before my second sober birthday. That's 2 years without a drink or a drug if you're counting. And I had a plan. I was standing in my shower crying. I couldn't stop crying. I was going to buy a gun so I could blow my head off on my second AA birthday because that's the best I got at 2 years without a drink. You see, I thought when I came to you that if I could stop drinking, things are going to get better. But when I stopped drinking without a sufficient substitute, things get worse, much worse. And luckily, I had trained my feet in Alcoholics Anonymous. I hadn't trained my brain yet. My feet took me out of that shower and took me to a meeting where some wonderful women grabbed me, women who care more about my life than my feelings. And if you're new, I hope someone cares more about your life than your feelings. And they said, you do some of what we do here. You don't do all of what we do here, and you're dying of alcoholism. And on that day, I was desperate and willing. And if you know, wish you desperation and willingness. Because if you're not, you won't do the things we do to stay here. And I would love to tell you that, like, this is a story of someone who then I work the steps and I do everything perfectly since then. And I'm actively sponsored and I do everything. And, now I walk through the fields every day with Bill, Bob, and Jesus. But that's not the case, right? Because my willingness, first of all, is completely dependent on my level of pain. Right. When I'm hurting, I come to you and I'm willing to do anything you tell me to do. Make the coffee, mop the floors, anything you ask me to do. Go to meetings, sponsor others, work the steps. And the minute I get a little comfortable, I want to coast. I want to do it my way for a minute. I mean, they're asking a lot, right? How many meetings you want me to go to? How many people you want me to help? And so I can tell you that sobriety for me has been more like this. See, I thought when I got sober, it's going to go better, 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 better. I don't believe that. I believe life goes like this. And Alcoholics Anonymous has given me the ability to surf those waves. What I can tell you I've done for almost 24 years is I've stayed here. I've never left. There was a period of time where I didn't go to meetings for a short period of time. It did not go well for me. Uh, I went stark raving sober, and I don't recommend it. But what I can tell you is, I've been married in sobriety. I've been divorced in sobriety. I've been married again in sobriety. I've been divorced again in sobriety. I'm 4 husbands down. We're going to call that a day. And I can tell you that this life that it's given me is absolutely amazing. I got married. Well, I'll tell you this. I was 8.5 years sober, and I started thinking. That's a problem for me, by the way, because I have a thinking problem, not a drinking problem. If I had just a drinking problem, I'd stop drinking. There'd be no problem. What happened for me was I was sitting in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I started thinking. Because my life looked really good on the outside. I had married a wonderful man in Alcoholics Anonymous. We had a big sober wedding with 238 of our closest friends and family. I had gotten custody of my son back after 3.5 years of not having my son. We bought a beautiful house. I was driving a BMW. My life looked really good on the outside. And I only had one problem, just one little problem. I'd worked those steps, but I had a problem. You guys kept talking about God. I'm not a big fan. I come from a household where, you bang your knee on the coffee table and my Jewish mother would yell from the other room, God punishes, right? And I don't want that guy to know where I live. So I skipped it. And I'm 8.5 years sober and I'm sitting in the rooms. And I started thinking, I wonder if these people are doing all the things they say they're doing. I mean, rigorous honesty. Who does that? It started really simply with illegally downloading music because I think I'm entitled. And then I thought it was okay to cheat on my taxes. I mean, everybody cheats on their taxes, right? And then I thought it was okay to cheat on my husband with a 24-year-old boy at 18 months sober and no regard to his welfare. And I was doing shady stuff in and out of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And luckily, the woman who was my sponsor for 13 years came into my life and she said, You're going to drink. I was like, No, don't you know who I think I am? She said, You're the prom queen of the leper colony now. Now what, right? You're popular in AA. Ooh, head table at the mental hospital. And she opened up that book and showed me where it said that if I continued to harm others and my motives didn't change, I was sure to drink. And I didn't believe her. And I was 10 years sober and I was standing in a bar in Las Vegas, Nevada, a bar I had been in a bunch of times. And I had a thought. You see, sudden thoughts and impulsive actions, untreated alcoholism. I was standing in a bar and I thought to myself, if I weren't an alcoholic, I wouldn't have to live up to this spiritual garbage. And I knew I was going to take a drink. You see, that woman had told me that everything I was doing was walking towards a drink or walking away from a drink. I'm not just in here with you because I can be a spiritual beacon of light for an hour and a half, sit next to me on a freeway. And I knew she was right. I knew I was going to take a drink. And I called her up and I said, I'm going to drink. What do I do? And she said, well, it's a program of principles and you don't have any. The first one being honesty and the second one being humility. And I found out when I got honest, humility soon took care of itself, right? Because when the people in AA found I had cheated on the nicest guy in AA, the guy who founded my old home group, people weren't nice to me, right? People would walk up to me at meetings and go, and walk away from me, which was great because you couldn't be my higher power for one more minute. It says in our literature that God couldn't would if he were sought. I have to go seek. You see, no human power can relieve my suffering. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, they said, make the doorknob your higher power, make the tree your higher power, make the group your higher power. That's all great, but my doorknob's going to break. Somebody's going to cut down my tree, and eventually you're going to fail me because you're a human power. I lost everything that came between me and God. I lost that house. I lost that marriage. I totaled my pretty BMW texting because I was so important I couldn't miss that text. And I ended up in a guest house in someone's backyard seeking God and having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. That's all I get. I get a God and I get to give it to somebody else. I used to think it was about cash and prizes. If you're new, feel free to chase the cash and prizes. I have found they come and they go. I get a God of my own understanding that solves my problems. And what does that look like? Peace. Because I know that God's got me no matter what. And my God may not look like your God. I was raised Jewish. I'm a practicing Buddhist. In LA, that made me a Buju. And I have an 11-step practice where I get in a connection with this God that solves my problems no matter what. You see, because it's really easy for me to believe in God when I'm getting my way. The hardest part is believing in God when I'm not getting my way. And what I can tell you is that God is there all of the time. And I married another guy. I moved to another country. I have a tattoo. It's kind of hard to see on Zoom. It says, seemed like a good idea at the time. It's my life story. And I married another guy who lived in England. So I moved to England. And I didn't move somewhere cool like London. I moved to a place called the Midlands, which is like the Oklahoma of England, but not even cool like Oklahoma City, like Enid, Oklahoma. Like, and I thought there's AA everywhere. And there is, we had one meeting a week within the towns around where I lived, one meeting a day. So you went from town to town, same 8 people in every meeting, no steps, no traditions on the wall. Nobody had a book and they're all just complaining about their day. And I thought, man, this is the worst decision I've ever made. I was looking for women. There were only 2 women when I got there. One had 6 months sober and one had 20 years sober. And within 6 months of my arrival, the woman with 20 years sober was diagnosed with cancer and passed away. And I thought, man, this is the worst mistake I've ever made in my life. There's nobody to sponsor, there's no newcomers, and I'm going to die. And my sponsor said, just keep showing up with the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and being the example that you know. And so eventually one woman showed up, and then another woman showed up, and then another woman showed up. And in the time that I lived there, I ended up sponsoring 17 people and taking them through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous as I was taught. And I still sponsor some of those women today. And, my sponsee loves to say to me, I'm so grateful that I have a sponsee now that was actually my grand sponsee when I lived there, but her sponsor went to do other things. And she said, I'm so grateful you took my sponsor through that book, who took me through that book, because I'm taking other women through that book. And that was my purpose there. Amazingly enough, it wasn't the man. I know you're totally shocked that didn't work out. I know. But also God knows me, right? God could come down like Charlton Heston God with like robes and staff and go, Lulu, I need you to go do my work, in the middle of England. And I would have been like, dude, I live in Los Angeles and I'm super busy. So he sent me a cute guy with an English accent. Boom, I'm there. And after 4 years there, it was time for me to move back to Los Angeles. And I got offered a guest house in a place called Northridge, California. I had lived in a very cool area called the NoHo Arts District, which is a misnomer. There's lots of hoes. However, I wanted to move back there. I couldn't afford it. I got offered this guest house in Northridge, California. My sponsor said, shut up and take the guest house. It was 2018. And, I went back to live in my little life in Los Angeles. God sent me, I had a 500 square foot guest house. God sent me a 5-pound Chihuahua. I drive a Miata because God thinks I need miniature things. And I just went back to living my life. And then 2020 came along. Anyone else have a weird 2020? Yeah. I had a little side of weird sauce with my 2020. On January 19th of 2020, I had a stroke. They say it must have been really traumatic. I don't know. I don't remember any of it. It's a clot in your brain. They say get a good sponsor. They'll save your life. Mine did. It's very time sensitive. You have 3 hours to get the shot that clears the clot out of your brain. My sponsor and best friend got me to call 911. The paramedics showed up, realized I was having a stroke, and they took me to Northridge Hospital, which is a mile from where I lived, and the only stroke center in the San Fernando Valley. Is it odd or is it God? They gave me that shot when they diagnosed me, when they uh, admitted me to the hospital. They diagnosed me with something called MRSA. Didn't know what MRSA was, didn't really care. I was busy having a stroke. I was in the ICU for 10 days. They let me out of there. A month later, I lost my job, pretty much my career. I didn't work again for 14 months. And on March 13th, when Los Angeles was locking down for COVID, I got very sick with MRSA. I broke out in abscesses all over my body. I was septic and I almost died for the second time that year. I was in and out of emergency rooms, which were not really emergency rooms. They were tents in parking lots, and guys were treating me in hazmat suits. It was pretty scary. And so I thought that would be the perfect time to get in a relationship with a guy who was 25 years old, 4 months sober and 5 days out of prison. Thank you. Thank you very much. Some of us are sicker than others. By April, you guys were gone, right? You were in little squares. There were no meetings anymore, and I was completely detached from you. By May, the MRSA attacked bones in my mouth. They needed major surgery to move bones from my mouth. And by June, that relationship ended in a hotel room in Las Vegas, Nevada, in violence. And my ass was falling off. And the old timers used to say, if your ass is falling off, pick it up and put it in a bag and take it to a meeting. But you weren't there anymore. There were no meetings. And I wasn't sure I wanted to be on this planet anymore. And I was detached from you, and I was detached from God. And everything I thought made me was gone. The job was gone. You were gone. The boy was gone. It was gone. And then I remembered they had a meeting in a park, a rogue, illegal meeting in a park. So I picked up my camping chair and I picked up my big book. And I went out to that park every day at noon and 6. Because the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says that nothing will so much ensure immunity from drinking than intensive work with another alcoholic. And these girls were coming from the treatment centers, right? They didn't have anywhere to take them. So they would bring these vans of the girls to the park. And nobody with any time was really in the park. My sponsor said, because everybody with any sense was at home, following the law. But I knew I was going to die of alcoholism before I died of anything else. And I spent every day out in that park for the rest of that year, and we got through. I can tell you this. Alcoholics Anonymous, when I got here, they said, I have a life beyond my wildest dreams. I'd look people up and down and think, man, you need to get some better dreams, right? Because I had no clue. I had no clue when I got here. My brother, that guy, I wasn't a big fan of him. I don't know if you have a perfect sibling. I have a perfect sibling, right? I'm a big fan of that guy. And when I was 24 years old, our dad died. And my brother was younger. He's 3.5 years younger than me. He couldn't show up. And when I was cleaning out my dad's house, he was kind of a high-end hoarder. My brother said, I only want one thing of dad's. It's a Movado watch. So I came across this Movado watch. I stuck it in my pocket and I never gave it to my brother. Screw that guy. So I'm 10 years sober. My life is on fire in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? And you guys are being mean to me. You guys are being terrible to me in meetings, right? I cheated on that guy. And I called my sponsor in tears. They wouldn't hold my hand during the Lord's Prayer at the meeting. My sponsor goes, why don't you give your brother the watch? I'm not talking about the watch. They wouldn't hold my hand at the meeting. She said, why don't you give your brother the watch? And she hung up the phone. You see how I don't like my brother, that guy, he's perfect. And I don't want to give my brother the watch. But I also know that, I'll shut up my sponsor. I'll do anything you ask me to do. And so I cleaned up this watch and I called my mom. And all my mom has ever wanted was for my brother and I to have a relationship, right? And and I keep telling her we're nothing alike. We're not going to be friends. It's never going to happen. So I called up my mom and I said, my brother was visiting. I said, I'm going to pick up Josh. I'm going to take him to the airport. My mother said, you're not going to kill him and hide the body, are you? I said, no. So we're driving down the 405 freeway in my little car and I fixed up that watch and I hand him the box and he opens it up and he starts to cry. I said, I was wrong for what I did to you. What can I do to make it right? My brother said, do you know what it was like to be your brother? And I said, no, why don't you tell me? And my brother said, I was just a good kid doing the best I could do. And you were in the principal's office again, and you were in the hospital again, and you were in the back of a police car again. And mom and dad didn't even know I was alive. You see, my brother's a good dude. My brother pays his bills. My brother's a school teacher. His students love him. My brother's going to retire in a few years with a pension. He's a good dude. He's been teaching for 30 years in Phoenix. We go to the grocery store and guys like across the store remember him from 30 years ago being his teacher. Mr. O. They love him. He's a good dude. And I could never see it until that moment. So I did what you taught me to do. I didn't just say I was wrong. I amended the behavior. I started to make my brother the center of attention. My brother works in an inner city school. We started raising money on my Facebook page for his girls so that they could have volleyball jerseys. And we started to build a relationship. And in 2019, I found out that his not they were at the time they were Oakland, his Oakland Raiders we're playing my Chicago Bears in London. Now, my brother's never been anywhere. I've been flitting all over the world. I've been to 29 countries. My brother's a responsible guy who pays his bills. He doesn't have a stamp on his passport. So I told him I was going to take him on a trip. And on September 28th of 2018, or 2019, my brother and I got on an airplane. And we started off in Edinburgh, Scotland. We drove all the way down through England. We met all my friends. We went to see Arsenal play. We saw the Bears play the Raiders in Tottenham's new stadium in London. The Raiders won. Told him it was part of the amends. What I can tell you I learned on that trip, right, is what a great guy my brother was, and we're exactly alike. We have the same sense of humor. We took that road trip. We had an absolute ball. Why that's relevant today is because my mother, who is the light of my life, lives 10 minutes from my brother and has dementia. We've had to put her in an assisted living facility. And without this relationship with my brother, we couldn't take care of my mom. And you see, I didn't see that coming either. That wasn't on my bingo card. See, I can tell you that when I got here, you said, don't leave before the miracle happens. And if you would have told me it was a road trip with my brother, I would have told you you could keep your miracle. But you guys see things that I can't see coming down the pike. And what I can tell you is this life that you've given me, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I got sober at a place called Radford Hall. Radford Hall. There were these hippie ladies of Radford Hall. They were essential oil sniffing, crystal wearing hippie ladies tie-dye wearing. They'd be like, if you want what we have and you're going to go to any length to get it, you know. And I was like, no. I had a pierced tongue. I was riding a motorcycle that I had just gotten out of the pawn shop, listening to metal. I was 10 years sober. I had a guy say to me, maybe if you stop listening to angry white boy music, you stop being such an angry white boy. They were absolutely right. I started listening to Britney Spears. You can't be mad when you listen to Britney. And I can tell you though, today what I am is I'm an essential oil sniffing, crystal wearing, no tie-dye yet, hippie lady who meditates. Because what these ladies were offering me was peace, right? They were offering me peace, and it was a peace that I didn't even want when I got here. And now that I have it, I wouldn't sell it to you for $1 million. But if you ask me, I'll give it to you for free. So thank you.